Dozens of citizens were killed on Friday morning as a result of the Israeli occupation forces shelling of a residential area in Beilaya city. The leader of South Korea's ruling party, Han Dong-hoon, called on Friday for President Yoon Suk-yeol to be immediately suspended from his youth duties. And the 65th MERCOSUR Summit is being held in Uruguay with the participation of the President of the European Commission, a context in which a trade agreement could be signed. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belen de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. And we begin with the Middle East as dozens of citizens were killed on Friday morning as a result of the Israeli occupation forces shelling of a residential area in Beit Lahiya city near the Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza. A large number of people are still missing under the rubble of the houses in Beit Lahiya as the WHO slams this attack. Tel Aviv also bombed a school for displaced people in the town of Jabalia. 2 citizens were also killed as a result of the shelling by the occupation forces on Al-Rafi school, which shelters displaced people in Jabalia, and 3 citizens were killed as a result of an airstrike in Khirbet al-Adas in north of Rafah city. Likewise, there are dead and wounded bodies on the streets and no one can reach them, preventing ambulances and medical teams from approaching the site. And in this context, Israel campaign against the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East is extending its reach with the use of hate speech and threats to its staff. This was warned in a statement by the main humanitarian actor in Gaza, recognizing the impact of these pressures against its operations and workers. The entity denounced the use of billboards in several cities around the world and also paid advertisement on the Google platform on multiple websites, seeking to discredit what it is considered to be the backbone of the UN in Gaza. To date, 251 UNRWA employees have been killed in the coastal enclave and 2/3 of its buildings have been bombed. And in other news, a Jerusalem district court on Thursday rejected Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's request to limit his mandatory court appearances in his corruption trial to twice a week. The judges ruled that they found no compelling reason to grant this request, forcing him to testify 3 times a week. The first hearing will be held on December 12th. Netanyahu is charged with fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in 3 separate scandals involving favoritism with powerful media moguls and wealthy associates. Netanyahu denies any wrongdoing. And we go now to Syria as the escalation caused by terrorist groups in Aleppo provokes new displacements.
There is no water or bathroom facilities, and the aid is distributed in a disorganized manner. They have to organize the process, so they distribute the aid to each tent separately. That way, everyone gets a fair share of the aid. We have been here for 4 days. Whenever I go to get help, they say there is nothing left. Some people only have 3 blankets. We spread one on the ground and the rest is used by 7 or 8 people.
We were doing well in the Shaba camps. We went to work and came home every day. We had enough to live on. Suddenly we decided to leave. We were getting ready to leave after spending 1 night in the camps in Shaba. At 10 a.m. in the next morning we left, about 5,000 cars. We arrived at 10 o'clock at night. The road was tiring for a motorcycle because we had children and there was a traffic jam. Some people stopped on the road, others ran out of gas. It was cold. We suffered a lot on the way.
And amid the escalation in Syria, the Iraqi Popular Defense Forces have reaffirmed their support for the government of Syria, of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
Hoy, el Comando de Operaciones de Ámbar, el Comando de la Séptima División y sus brigadas, representadas por la
Today, the Anbar Operations Command, the 7th Division Command and its brigades, represented by the 102nd Brigade, the 25th Division and all other sectors, including the Rapid Response and Border Guard Commands, are conducting a sector inspection mission and locating the soft areas through which terrorists try to infiltrate the Syrian side.
The Iraqi borders are secured with all technical preparations, including barbed wire, barriers, trenches, berms, concrete blocks, thermal cameras and a fully equipped border police. Following the recent events in Syria, the Prime Minister and the Popular Mobilization Commission issued a directive to carry out joint operations to secure the borders. Today we are carrying out this joint operation to secure and protect the borders of Iraq and to support the border police. These support operations will continue to protect the land and skies of Iraq.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. You will find news in different formats and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with the information. The leader of South Korea's ruling party, Han Dong-hoon, called on Friday for President Yoon Suk-yeol to be immediately suspended from his duties. This follows news that the president ordered the arrest of senior political leaders, including Han himself, during the martial law he surprisingly declared on Tuesday. Han said that he has confirmed with credible evidence that Yoon gave the orders to arrest him, the leader of his own party, or Lee Jae-myung, the leader of the main opposition Democratic Party, and said that these radical actions put the country in great danger and could be repeated if the president remains in power.
Last night, it was confirmed through reliable evidence that President Yoon Suk-yeol instructed Yo In-hyun, his high school junior and defense counterintelligence commander, to arrest key political figures and others on the grounds that they were anti-state forces on the day he declared martial law, and that the president mobilized an intelligence agency to arrest politicians.
And in this context, the chief of the People Power Party called for an emergency meeting of all its lawmakers to discuss the vote to be taken in the parliamentary session to approve or not Yoon's impeachment.
새로이 드러나고 있는 사실 등을 감안할 때
Considering the newly emerging facts, I believe that a swift suspension of President Yoon Suk-yeol's duties is necessary to safeguard the Republic of Korea and its people.
In other news, Vietnam achieved a trade surplus of $24.31 billion between January and last November, when exports and import operations totaled $715.55 billion of the currency itself. In the past 11 months, the value of exports reached $369.93 billion, up 14.4% year-on-year, while imports totaled $349.62 billion, up 16.4% points over the same period of last year. According to the General Statistics Office, 36 products reached an export volume of more than $1 billion in the reference period, and 7 of them brought in more than $10 billion. And we go now to Ghana, where the two main political parties running for the presidency held their final rallies in Accra on Thursday in an election largely dominated by the country's economic crisis. Former President John Dramani Mahama of the National Democratic Congress is the main opposition candidate facing Mahamudu Bawumia of the ruling New Patriotic Party. Bawumia has served as vice president for the past 8 years under President Nana Akufo-Addo, who was elected in 2016 amid widespread dissatisfaction with the then ruling party and after months of intense power shortages and high-profile corruption scandals. Dramani is now running for president again. Presidential and parliamentary elections will be held simultaneously on December 7th. And in Sierra Leone, a national preventive vaccination campaign against Ebola launched on Thursday, administering a first dose to frontline and health workers. This national preventive vaccination campaign against Ebola is carried out a decade after being the country's hardest hit by the worst epidemic of this disease in history, which left more than 11,300 dead in West Africa. As reported by the WHO, the UNICEF, and the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, the campaign seeks to administer a dose to 20,000 people. The target population includes healthcare workers and frontline workers exposed to this disease. And now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The 65th MERCOSUR Summit is being held in Uruguay with the participation of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in a context that could bring about a trade agreement. The presidents of all the member countries, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay, as well as the presidents of Colombia and Bolivia, are participating in the summit. According to reports, there is an understanding on the final text of a free trade agreement between MERCOSUR and the European Union, and the signing is expected to take place this Friday. The main difficulties for the final agreement are related to trade, and especially how it could affect the agricultural sectors of several European countries that are opposed to the signing of this agreement, such as France, Poland, and the Netherlands. And also dozens of residents of Sao Paulo, Brazil's most populous state, protested on Thursday against police violence following a series of questionable cases in recent days. The images of the events went viral on social networks and forced the regional government to finally react. Demonstrators gathered in front of the Municipal Theater of Sao Paulo, the state capital, to demand the dismissal of the Regional Secretary of Public Security, Guilherme de Rite, who until now has defended the action of the police, even in cases where their abuses and lethality were evident. And speaking at the inauguration of the new Suzano pulp mill in Mato Grosso, Brazil's president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva predicted an economic growth of 4% for the current year, defying pessimistic forecasts. The assertion is based on official data released this week, showing that gross domestic product grew by 0.9% in the third quarter of the year compared to the previous quarter, and by 3.1 percentage points compared to the same period of last year. Lula criticized the predictions of some market sectors, which expected a GDP growth of only 1.5%, and assured that the Brazilian economy will grow by 3.5% and could even reach a 4% growth. He also highlighted Brazil's remarkable economic growth compared to the global economy. And the Constitutional Court of Ecuador declared this Thursday that Japanese Furukawa company kept workers in slavery conditions and ordered the payment of $120,000 to each victim of the practice known as slavery by serfdom. The Constitutional Court informed that Furukawa violated the prohibition of slavery to the detriment of the avocaderos of its plantations, denying their human dignity. It added that the company took advantage of people in conditions of extreme vulnerability to live in camps on the farms and harvest abaca, a fiber used in the textile industry. It also identified 342 people who were living in slave-like conditions in camps without electricity, drinking water, basic sanitation, or access to education or health services. And the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, awarded on Thursday the former president of Uruguay, José Mujica, with the Cruz de Boyacá, the highest civilian distinction awarded by the Colombian government. The ceremony took place at the home of the former Uruguayan president on the outskirts of Montevideo. The Order of Boyacá honors and exalts national and foreign individuals and institutions that have excelled for their services in Colombia. After reading of the protocol text of the order, the Colombian president proceeded to place the sash on Mujica, who was accompanied by his wife and former Uruguayan senator, Lucia Topolansky, to later pose before the press and enter the house without making any statements. And we go now to Venezuela, where the deputies of the National Assembly assured that the appropriation of the budget law is a response to the great development and economic stability of the country.
This speaks of the stability of the country. We would not be talking or referring to budgets, analyzing fiscal accounts and approving laws for economic development if we were not in a situation of tranquility, order, and consolidated democracy in the country. There is a gigantic sacrifice there, of the Venezuelan people and of the revolutionary forces that have taken the lead to stop the onslaught of fascism and imperialism. That is a first element that we cannot underestimate. The economic issue will always be subordinated or related to the political issue. The political issue is tremendously linked to the economic issue.
I think it is a recurrent trend, which is convenient. What is dedicated to education? What is dedicated to health? What is invited to the local instances such as the communal councils will always result in a greater benefit for the people. But again, those amounts are less and less as long as the exchange rate issue is not solved.
And we go now to sports, as the groups for the 2025 Club World Cup to be held next summer in the United States have been defined after the draw was made in Miami, Florida. The 32 invited teams already know their way in the new FIFA tournament, which will be held from June 15 to July 13th in the United States, and where the Mexican League will have 3 representatives, Rayados de Monterrey, Pachuca, and León. As was already known, Inter Miami of the host country will be in charge of the opening of the tournament at the Hard Rock Stadium, where Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba will open the curtain against Al Ahly Football Club of Egypt on June 15th. And the 45th edition of the Havana Film Festival opened Thursday, December 5th at the Charles Chaplin Movie Theater in the Cuban capital, with the presence of at least 42 countries, including Mexico, Venezuela, Argentina, and Spain, among others. The director of the festival, Tania Delgado, said that the festival is a bet on the diverse identity of Cubans and said that during the event, a day will be dedicated to highlight the cause of the Palestinian people, victims of Israel's aggression. As part of the inauguration, Cuban artists performed, among them Cuban pianist Alejandro Falcón and saxophonist Cesar Lopez. A tribute was also paid to Cuban cartoonist, screenwriter, and film director Juan Padrón. And on December 6th of 1998, Hugo Chávez Frías was elected for the first time president of Venezuela with 56.20% of the votes. He put an end to bipartisanism exercised by the Acción Democrática and COPEI parties, which surrendered the country to neoliberal interests. On February 2nd, 1999, Hugo Chávez assumed the presidency of the country with an oath that marked the beginning of a profound process of changes. During his swearing-in, he expressed the will to promote the necessary democratic transformations for the new republic to have a Magna Carta adequate to the new times. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.